Captain Marcus Chen stared at the ornate invitation floating above his desk, its holographic symbols shifting between colors he didn't have names for. The translation matrix had been working overtime for the past hour, and the message was finally clear enough to understand. The Zephyrian royal court cordially requested his presence at the wedding ceremony of Princess Lyrelai, eldest daughter of King Vorthak the Eternal, to Prince Catherine of the Stellar Dominion. The ceremony would take place on the crystal moon of Zephyr Prime in 7 standard days. Marcus rubbed his temples. 3 months ago, he had been a simple cargo hauler running supplies between Earth colonies. Then the Zephyrians had attacked one of those colonies and everything changed. He had been the only human ship in the area when the distress signal came through. What followed was a desperate fight that nobody expected him to survive. The Zephyrians were known throughout the galaxy as master warriors. Their ships were faster, their weapons more powerful, and their tactics refined over thousands of years of conquest. When Marcus jumped into the system in his battered cargo hauler, the Wandering Star, even he thought he was flying to his death. But humans had something the galaxy hadn't seen before. They called it desperation, creativity, or plain stubbornness. Marcus called it Tuesday. He had used his cargo bay full of mining explosives, a malfunctioning gravity generator, and sheer bloody-mindedness to take down 3 Zephyrian destroyers. The footage of his jury-rigged cargo hauler ramming through their formation, while spewing improvised mines, had spread across the galactic networks within hours. The Zephyrians, to their credit, recognized courage when they saw it. Instead of hunting him down, they had offered him what they called the warrior's respect, a formal acknowledgement that he had earned his place among their greatest fighters. It came with certain privileges, including safe passage through their territory and, apparently, invitations to royal weddings. Marcus looked around his small cabin aboard the newly christened UHSV Liberty. The United Human Space Command had given him a proper warship after his accidental heroics, complete with a crew of Earth's finest. They wanted him to be humanity's face in the galaxy, a symbol of human determination and ingenuity. He wasn't sure he was ready for that responsibility, but the invitation in front of him represented an opportunity. Humans were still newcomers to galactic politics. Most species either ignored them or saw them as primitive upstarts. A chance to attend a major royal wedding, to network with representatives from across the galaxy, was too valuable to pass up. The door chimed, and his first officer, Lieutenant Sarah Walsh, entered. She took one look at the floating invitation and whistled low. "That's either really good news or really bad news, Captain." "Probably both," Marcus replied. "The Zephyrians want me at a royal wedding. Political opportunity of a lifetime, but also about 1,000 ways it could go wrong." Sarah studied the invitation's shifting text. "Sir, have you read the fine print? There's something here about ceremonial protocols and traditional observances." Marcus waved his hand dismissively. "Alien wedding customs. How complicated could it be? We show up, smile politely, eat whatever they serve, and make diplomatic small talk. Standard first contact procedures. Sir, with respect, your last encounter with alien customs involved accidentally challenging their fleet commander to single combat. That worked out fine. You beat him. Unconscious with a wrench." "Very diplomatic wrench," Marcus said with a grin. "Look, Sarah, this is important. The Zephyrians control 1/3 of the galaxy's trade routes. Their royal family has connections with every major power. If we can establish good relations here, it opens doors for all of humanity." Sarah pulled up the ship's database on Zephyrian culture. "Captain, I'm reading some concerning things here. Their wedding ceremonies are incredibly complex, with dozens of traditional roles and ceremonial requirements. One wrong move could be interpreted as anything from an insult to a declaration of war." Marcus stood and walked to the viewport, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, Earth's colonies were growing and expanding. Humanity was taking its first steps into a galaxy full of ancient civilizations and complex politics. They needed allies, and sometimes that meant taking risks. "Prep the ship, Lieutenant. We're going to a wedding," Sarah sighed. "Should I alert the diplomatic corps? Maybe we could get an expert in Zephyrian customs aboard before we leave." "No time. The ceremony is in 7 days, and it'll take us 5 to reach Zephyr Prime. We'll learn as we go." "Sir, what about a gift? You can't show up to a royal wedding empty-handed." Marcus paused. That was a good point. What do you give to alien royalty who probably owned entire star systems? He thought about humanity's unique contributions to galactic civilization. Most other species had followed predictable technological paths, developing along similar lines. Humans, with their short lifespans and chaotic creativity, had come up with solutions nobody else had considered. "I've got an idea," he said. "Remember that music collection I keep in my personal files? The one with everything from classical to folk songs to that terrible synthwave stuff you hate? You're going to give alien royalty your music collection?" Think about it, Sarah. Art is universal. Music tells stories, expresses emotions, captures the essence of a culture. No other species creates music quite like humans do. It's chaotic, emotional, unpredictable. It's perfectly human. Sarah considered this. It's certainly unique. I'll have the computer prepare a comprehensive archive. As she turned to leave, Marcus called after her. "And Sarah, make sure we have dress uniforms ready. Something tells me this ceremony is going to be formal." 3 days later, the Liberty dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zephyr system. Marcus stood on the bridge, watching the view screen fill with one of the most beautiful sights he had ever seen. Zephyr Prime was a crystalline moon orbiting a gas giant whose rings caught and reflected the light of the system's twin suns. The entire moon seemed to glow with an inner light, its crystal formations creating a natural palace that stretched across continents. "Captain," his communications officer called out, "we're being hailed by Zephyrian Customs Control." On screen. The view screen filled with the image of a Zephyrian official. The aliens were tall and graceful, with elongated limbs and faces that seemed carved from living metal. Their eyes held an intelligence that spoke of millennia of civilization. "Human vessel Liberty, you are cleared for approach to the ceremonial landing platforms. Please follow the designated course and prepare for customs inspection." "Understood, Zephyr Control. We're honored to be here." As the Liberty descended toward the crystal moon surface, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that this trip would change everything. He just hoped it would change things for the better. The Liberty touched down on a landing platform made of what appeared to be solid diamond. Marcus watched through the viewport as Zephyrian ground crews approached with equipment that seemed more like art than tools. Everything on this moon appeared to be crafted from crystal, from the smallest decorative elements to the massive spires that stretched toward the rings above. "Captain," Lieutenant Walsh said, checking her data pad. "The customs officials are requesting permission to board." "Standard diplomatic protocol." Marcus straightened his dress uniform and nodded. "Send them up. And remember, everyone stays professional. We're representing all of humanity here." The customs inspection was surprisingly straightforward. The Zephyrian officials were courteous and efficient, though Marcus noticed they spent considerable time examining his gift, the music archive he had prepared. Their translator seemed to struggle with some of the song titles. "Born to be Wild?" the lead official asked, his metallic features showing what might have been confusion. "It's a song about freedom and adventure," Marcus explained. "Very popular among humans, and this one, We Will Rock You, a song about unity and strength, often played at gatherings." The official made notes on a device that looked like liquid mercury held in the shape of a tablet. "Fascinating. We look forward to analyzing these cultural artifacts." After the inspection, Marcus and a small honor guard were escorted through corridors that defied description. The walls were living crystal that shifted colors as they passed, responding to movement and emotion. Zephyrian courtiers glided through the halls, their formal robes seeming to float around them like liquid starlight. "The human delegation," announced their escort, a minor court official named Silthar, "will be housed in the visitor's spire. These quarters have been specifically prepared to accommodate your species' requirements." The rooms were spectacular. Crystal walls provided panoramic views of the gas giant's swirling storms, while somehow maintaining perfect climate control. The furniture was grown rather than built, shaped from the same living crystal as the walls. Marcus's quarters even included what the Zephyrians had, thoughtfully labeled as primitive human entertainment systems, a collection of basic terminals and recreational equipment. "The welcoming ceremony begins in 3 hours, Silthar informed them. "You will be presented to King Vorthak and Princess Lyrelai before the evening feast. Please be aware that certain protocols must be observed." As their escort left, Sarah approached Marcus with a concerned expression. "Sir, I've been reviewing the cultural database our diplomatic corps provided. There are some things about Zephyrian customs that seem complicated. Define complicated." "Well, for starters, they have very specific rules about gift giving. The nature of a gift and how it's presented can carry significant meaning. Also, their concept of honor and respect involves physical demonstrations that might not translate well to human behavior. Marcus walked to the crystal wall, looking out at the approaching ceremony preparations. Ships from dozens of worlds were arriving, their varied designs creating a spectacular light show as they descended through the moon's atmosphere. He could see delegations from the Stellar Dominion, the Krillian Empire, and what looked like a Voidwalker vessel, one of the mysterious ships belonging to the energy beings from the galactic core. "Sarah, I've been thinking about this wrong," he said finally. "We keep trying to fit in, to follow their rules perfectly. But maybe what makes humans special is that we don't fit in. We do things differently. Sir, this is a royal wedding, not the time for human improvisation." Before Marcus could respond, a chime sounded through their quarters. Silthar's voice followed, speaking through some kind of crystal communication system. "Honored guests, please prepare for presentation to the royal court. The ceremony begins shortly." Marcus checked his uniform one final time and picked up the music archive, now contained in a simple but elegant case provided by the ship's fabricators. Time to meet the king. The throne room was beyond magnificent. It existed within a natural crystal cavern that had been carefully shaped and enhanced over centuries. The ceiling stretched hundreds of meters above, filled with floating crystal formations that provided light and created an acoustic environment that turned every sound into music. Representatives from across the galaxy filled the space, creating a kaleidoscope of colors, shapes, and sizes. King Vorthak sat on a throne that seemed to be carved from a single massive crystal. He was tall even by Zephyrian standards, his metallic features bearing the wisdom and weariness of centuries of rule. Beside him stood Princess Lyrelei, and Marcus had to admit she was stunning. Her crystalline skin seemed to hold starlight, and her formal robes shifted through colors that had no names in human language. "Presenting Captain Marcus Chen of the United Human Space Command," Silthar announced. "Hero of the colony defense, bearer of the warrior's respect." Marcus approached the throne, acutely aware that every eye in the chamber was upon him. He had faced down alien warships, but somehow this felt more dangerous. One wrong word or gesture could damage human-alien relations for generations. He stopped at the prescribed distance and offered the formal bow he had practiced. "Your Majesty, Your Highness, I am honored to be here. On behalf of humanity, I bring greetings and congratulations on this joyous occasion." King Vorthak studied him for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the harmonic qualities typical of his species, making even simple words sound like music. "Captain Chen, your reputation precedes you. The defense of the human colony showed courage worthy of our greatest warriors. You are welcome in our court." Princess Lyrelei stepped forward, and Marcus was struck by her grace. Everything about Zephyrian culture seemed to emphasize elegance and precision, but there was something in her eyes that suggested a keen intelligence and perhaps a hint of curiosity about the crude human who had somehow impressed her people. "Captain," she said, her voice like crystal chimes, "we have heard remarkable stories of human ingenuity. Is it true you defeated 3 of our destroyers using mining equipment?" Marcus smiled. "Your Highness, when you're outnumbered and outgunned, you use whatever you have. Humans have a saying, necessity is the mother of invention." "Interesting. And what invention have you brought to honor our celebration?" This was the moment Marcus had been preparing for. He stepped forward and presented the music archive with both hands, following what he hoped was proper protocol. "Your Highness, I bring you something uniquely human, our music. These songs tell the story of our species, our struggles, our joys, our hopes for the future. They represent thousands of years of human creativity and emotion." Princess Lyrelei accepted the gift, her crystal fingers touching the case with evident curiosity. "Music? This is unexpected. Most gifts we receive are precious metals or rare technologies. Music is more precious than metal, Your Highness. It carries the soul of a people." The princess exchanged a glance with her father, and Marcus caught what might have been approval in the king's expression. Around the chamber, he could sense the attention of the gathered dignitaries. This was either going very well or very badly. "We shall listen to these songs with great interest," the princess said formally. Then, surprising everyone, she added, "Perhaps you could explain some of them to us personally." King Vorthak stood, his presence commanding instant silence throughout the chamber. The welcoming ceremony is concluded. Let all beings prepare for the evening feast, where we shall celebrate not only the upcoming union of our houses, but also the growing friendship between our peoples. As the court began to disperse, Marcus felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned to find Silthar looking somewhat nervous. "Captain, a word of caution. Princess Lyralee's interest in your gift is unusual. She has always been fascinated by other cultures, sometimes to the concern of the court. Please be careful not to encourage any behavior that might be seen as inappropriate for a bride-to-be." Marcus nodded, though privately he wondered what kind of culture considered curiosity about other species to be inappropriate. As he watched the princess leave with her entourage, he couldn't shake the feeling that this wedding might be more complicated than anyone expected. The evening feast was held in a grand hall where crystal formations had been grown specifically to create perfect acoustics and lighting. Tables carved from single pieces of living stone accommodated hundreds of guests from across the galaxy. Marcus found himself seated at a position of honor, close enough to the royal table to observe the interactions between the various dignitaries. The food was unlike anything he had ever experienced. Zephyrian cuisine focused on crystalline fruits and what appeared to be cultivated light, literally edible illumination that provided both nutrition and flavor. Marcus was grateful for the dietary supplements his medical officer had insisted he take before leaving the ship. "Captain Chen," a voice called from across the table. Marcus looked up to see a delegation from the Krillian Empire, their scaled faces showing what he had learned to recognize as polite interest. "We are curious about this gift you presented to the princess." "Music, you called it?" "That's right," Marcus replied, setting down what might have been a glass of liquid starlight. "Human music is one of our greatest cultural achievements. It allows us to express emotions and tell stories in ways that simple words cannot." A Void Walker representative, appearing as a shimmering humanoid energy form, leaned forward. "Fascinating. Our species communicates through harmonic frequencies, but we had not considered the concept of organized sound for purely aesthetic purposes." Before Marcus could respond, Princess Lyralee approached their section of the table. The conversations around them quieted as other guests noticed her presence. "Captain Chen, I have had my scholars examine your gift. They are quite puzzled by several aspects of human music. Would you be willing to provide some clarification?" Marcus stood respectfully. "Of course, Your Highness. What questions do you have?" The princess activated a small crystal device that projected holographic representations of sound waves. "This song called Bohemian Rhapsody. Our analysts cannot determine its purpose. It appears to combine multiple musical styles and narrative structures in a way that defies classification." Marcus smiled. "Your Highness, that's exactly the point. Human music often breaks rules and combines different elements in unexpected ways. That particular song tells a story of guilt, redemption, and acceptance through multiple musical movements. And this one, the Imperial March, music from one of our fictional stories. We often create songs to accompany our entertainment narratives." The princess's eyes seemed to brighten. "You create music for stories that never happened? We create stories for music too. Sometimes the song comes first and we imagine what kind of story it might tell." Around the table, other guests were listening with evident fascination. The concept of creating art for its own sake, rather than for ceremonial or practical purposes, seemed to be unusual in their experience. "Your Highness," interjected a Stellar Dominion diplomat, his blue-tinged skin showing signs of agitation, "surely you should be focusing on the traditional ceremonies rather than primitive entertainment from lesser species." The temperature in the hall seemed to drop several degrees. Marcus felt the weight of hundreds of eyes turning toward their table. He was about to speak when Princess Lyralee's voice cut through the silence like a crystal blade. "Ambassador Threlkin, I believe you have forgotten yourself. Captain Chen is an honored guest, invited here by royal decree after demonstrating courage in battle against our own forces. His people may be new to galactic civilization, but they have already proven their worth." The Stellar Dominion diplomat's face darkened further. "Your Highness, I meant no disrespect to your guest. However, one must consider the appropriateness of such enthusiastic interest in foreign cultures when one is about to be wed to Prince Catherine." Marcus saw the princess's expression harden, and he realized he was witnessing something more than a simple diplomatic disagreement. There were undercurrents here that he didn't fully understand, but he could sense the tension building. "Perhaps," Marcus said carefully, We could continue this discussion at another time. I wouldn't want to disrupt such a joyous occasion. But Princess Lyrelay was not ready to let the matter drop. Ambassador, are you suggesting that intellectual curiosity is somehow inappropriate for a member of the royal family? I am suggesting that certain interests might be better pursued after one's duty to the alliance has been fulfilled. The word duty seemed to hang in the air like a challenge. Marcus was beginning to understand that this wedding might be more political arrangement than love match. He glanced toward the royal table, where King Vorthak was deep in conversation with Prince Kethrin, apparently unaware of the brewing conflict. Your Highness, Marcus said diplomatically, in human culture, we believe that curiosity and learning are virtues that should be encouraged, regardless of one's station in life. However, I also understand that different cultures have different expectations. Princess Lyrelay turned to look at him directly, and Marcus was struck by the intelligence and determination in her crystalline features. Captain Chen, tell me about human marriage customs. Do your people arrange unions for political purposes? This was definitely dangerous territory. Marcus chose his words carefully.
Some human cultures have arranged marriages, Your Highness.
Others allow individuals to choose their own partners based on mutual affection and compatibility. There's no single human approach to marriage. And which do you prefer? The question was loaded with implications that Marcus wasn't sure he wanted to explore. Around the table, the other guests were watching with the kind of intense attention usually reserved for impending disasters. I believe people should have a choice in determining their own happiness, Marcus said finally. The silence that followed was deafening. Ambassador Threlkin's expression suggested he had just witnessed an act of rebellion, while the princess's face showed what might have been relief or gratitude. Before anyone could respond, a new voice cut through the tension. Sister, are you entertaining our guests with philosophical debates? Prince Kethrin had approached their table, and Marcus got his first close look at the man who was supposed to marry Princess Lyrelay. He was tall and imposing, with the kind of presence that spoke of military training and political authority. His smile was perfectly diplomatic, but his eyes held a coldness that made Marcus uncomfortable. Brother, the princess replied formally. Captain Chen was explaining human cultural concepts. It's quite fascinating. I'm sure it is, Prince Kethrin said, his tone suggesting the opposite. Captain, I hope you're enjoying our hospitality. I trust you'll find tomorrow's pre-ceremony rituals equally entertaining. There was something in the way he said entertaining that made Marcus wary. I'm honored to witness your culture's traditions, Your Highness. Indeed, some of our traditions date back thousands of years. They can be quite surprising to newcomers. Princess Lyrelay's expression had become carefully neutral, but Marcus caught a flicker of what might have been concern. The conversation was clearly moving into territory that none of them wanted to explore publicly. Well, Prince Kethrin continued, I should return to my own guests. Sister, don't let our human friend keep you too long. You have an early morning tomorrow. After he left, the atmosphere at the table remained tense. Marcus realized that his simple presence had somehow become a complicating factor in what was already a complex political situation. Your Highness, he said quietly, if my presence here is causing problems, perhaps I should excuse myself. Princess Lyrelay looked at him for a long moment. Captain Chen, has anyone explained to you the significance of the pre-ceremony rituals tomorrow? No, Your Highness. I assumed they would be traditional blessings and preparations. Among other things, yes, but there are also tests, challenges, that must be faced by any who would claim the right to participate in the royal union. Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the crystal hall's temperature. Participate how, Your Highness? That remains to be seen, she said cryptically. I suggest you rest well tonight, Captain. Tomorrow may be more eventful than you expect. Marcus woke to the sound of crystal chimes echoing through his quarters. The pale light filtering through the walls suggested dawn was breaking over Zephyr Prime. He had slept poorly, troubled by dreams of diplomatic disasters and the princess's cryptic warnings about the day's events. A soft knock at his door interrupted his morning routine. Lieutenant Walsh entered, carrying a datapad and wearing an expression of barely controlled concern. Captain, we've got a problem. I've been in contact with our cultural liaison back on Earth, and they've found some troubling information about Zephyrian wedding traditions. Marcus accepted the datapad and scrolled through the transmitted files. His frown deepened as he read. Challenge rights. Trial by combat. Sarah, please tell me this is outdated information. I'm afraid not, sir. According to these sources, Zephyrian royal weddings include a period where any warrior of sufficient standing can issue challenges related to the union. It's an ancient tradition designed to ensure that only the strongest bloodlines continue the royal succession. Marcus set down the datapad and rubbed his temples. Let me guess. My status as a bearer of the warrior's respect qualifies me as someone of sufficient standing. That's the problem, sir. Technically, yes, but there's more. The challenges aren't necessarily directed at the groom. They can involve any aspect of the wedding arrangements, including the right to present alternative suits for the bride's consideration. Alternative suits? You mean? Yes, sir. A warrior could theoretically challenge for the right to court the princess themselves. Marcus stared out the crystal window at the gas giant's swirling storms. Please tell me there's no precedent for accidental marriage proposals in Zephyrian culture. Sarah's silence was answer enough. Before Marcus could fully process the implications, Silthar's voice echoed through the communication system. Honored guests, please prepare for the morning ceremonies. The ritual challenges will begin within the hour. Marcus straightened his uniform and tried to project confidence he didn't feel. All right, Sarah, here's what we're going to do. I'll attend the ceremonies, keep a low profile, and avoid doing anything that could be interpreted as a challenge to anyone about anything. Sir, what if someone challenges you? Then I improvise. Wouldn't be the first time. The ceremonial arena was a natural amphitheater carved into the crystal moon's surface. Crystalline formations provided seating for thousands of spectators, while the central floor was a perfectly smooth circle of polished stone. Marcus took his assigned seat among the other honored guests. Noting that he was positioned with a clear view of the royal platform where King Vorthak, Princess Lyrelai, and Prince Kethrin waited for the ceremonies to begin. The first challenges were traditional affairs, formal contests of skill and strength between members of various noble houses. Marcus watched as Zephyrian warriors engaged in elaborate duels with energy weapons that seemed more like dancing than fighting. Each contest was accompanied by ritual declarations and ceremonial exchanges that spoke to centuries of tradition. Beautiful, aren't they? Princess Lyrelai had somehow appeared beside his seat without him noticing. She wore ceremonial armor that seemed to be made from crystallized starlight, and her presence drew immediate attention from the surrounding guests. Your Highness, should you be away from the royal platform? The ceremonies provide certain freedoms of movement, she replied. I wanted to ask you about one of the songs in your gift, I Will Always Love You. Our scholars are puzzled by its emotional structure. Marcus glanced around nervously. They were attracting stares from every direction. Your Highness, it's a song about love and loss, about caring for someone even when you can't be with them. Fascinating. Do all humans experience such complex emotional attachments? Most of us, yes. Love is complicated for humans. We don't always choose partners based on political advantage or genetic compatibility. Sometimes we just connect with someone on a level that defies logic. Princess Lyrelai was quiet for a moment, watching the ongoing challenges. And you believe this emotional connection is more important than duty or obligation? Marcus realized they were venturing into dangerous territory again. I think people deserve the chance to be happy, Your Highness. But I also understand that those in positions of responsibility sometimes have to make difficult choices. Indeed they do, she said softly. Captain, may I ask you a hypothetical question? Of course. If a warrior were to issue a challenge of honor regarding this wedding, would you consider that appropriate? Marcus felt alarm bells going off in his head. Your Highness, I think that would depend on the nature of the challenge and the motivations behind it. Before she could respond, a commotion erupted from the arena floor. Prince Kethrin had stepped forward, his formal armor gleaming in the crystal light. His voice carried clearly across the amphitheater as he spoke in the traditional challenge format. I call upon the ancient rights of the Warrior's Code. Let any who would question the strength of this union, the worthiness of this alliance, or the honor of this arrangement step forward and be tested. The arena fell silent. This was clearly not part of the planned ceremonies. Marcus could see King Vorthak's expression of surprise and concern from across the amphitheater. Your Highness, Marcus whispered urgently. What is he doing? Creating an opportunity, she replied quietly. The question is whether anyone will take it. Marcus was about to ask what she meant when he realized that dozens of eyes were turning toward him. The significance of his presence, his status as a warrior, and his obvious interest in Zephyrian culture was apparently not lost on the assembled guests. "Captain Chen," Prince Catherine's voice rang out, "as a bearer of the warrior's respect and defender of your people, do you accept the challenge to prove your understanding of Zephyrian honor?" Marcus felt his mouth go dry. This was a trap, but he couldn't see a way out that wouldn't humiliate humanity or damage their diplomatic standing. Standing up slowly, he addressed the arena. "Your Highness, I am honored by your invitation. But I am here as a guest, not as a challenger." But the Warriors Code makes no distinction between guest and participant when honor is at stake. You have already demonstrated your worthiness in battle. Now demonstrate your understanding of our customs. Princess Lyreley touched Marcus's arm lightly. "Captain, in our culture, refusing a direct challenge is considered a grave insult. You have no choice but to accept." Marcus looked around the arena at thousands of expectant faces. Representatives from dozens of worlds were watching to see how humanity's representative would handle this situation. In the royal box, King Vorthak was watching with an expression of keen interest. "Very well," Marcus called out, his voice carrying clearly in the crystal acoustics of the arena. "I accept the challenge." Prince Catherine smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Excellent. The challenge is this. Demonstrate your understanding of Zephyrian honor by correctly identifying what aspect of this wedding arrangement most deserves to be questioned." Marcus felt his heart sink. This wasn't a test of combat skills or physical prowess, it was a political trap. Any answer he gave would either insult the royal family or imply criticism of their traditions. He was being set up to fail. But as he looked around the arena, Marcus realized something that changed his perspective entirely. This wasn't just about him, or even about humanity's diplomatic standing. Princess Lyreley had maneuvered him into this position for a reason. She wanted him to challenge something about this wedding. The question was, did he have the courage to do what she was asking? Taking a deep breath, Marcus stepped forward into the center of the arena. "Your Highness, I believe the aspect of this arrangement most deserving of question is whether the participants are entering into it freely, with full knowledge and consent." The silence that followed was absolute. Marcus had just challenged the fundamental basis of the royal wedding in front of representatives from across the galaxy. Prince Catherine's expression had gone from confident to furious. "Are you questioning the honor of the royal family?" "I am questioning whether honor can exist without freedom of choice," Marcus replied, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what he was doing. In the royal box, Princess Lyreley had stood up. Her voice carried across the arena as she spoke the words that would change everything. "I invoke the right of royal response to this challenge. Let the challenger prove his worthiness through the trial of understanding." The arena erupted in chaos. Voices raised in dozens of languages as representatives from across the galaxy tried to process what had just happened. Marcus stood in the center of the circle, suddenly feeling very alone as the implications of Princess Lyreley's declaration sank in. King Vorthak rose from his throne, his voice cutting through the tumult like a crystal blade. "Silence! The royal response has been invoked. All shall witness the trial of understanding according to the ancient laws." Silthar appeared at Marcus's side, his metallic features showing what might have been panic. "Captain, do you understand what has just occurred?" "I have a feeling I'm about to find out," Marcus replied, watching as ceremonial attendants began arranging objects in the arena. "The trial of understanding is one of our oldest traditions. It requires the challenger to demonstrate not just courage, but wisdom, empathy, and genuine comprehension of what they claim to defend. It has not been invoked in over 3 centuries. Marcus watched as 3 crystalline pedestals were placed in the arena, each holding a different object. "What exactly do I have to do?" "You must choose which of 3 gifts represents the greatest truth about the situation you have challenged. Choose correctly and your challenge is validated. Choose incorrectly." Silthar's voice trailed off. "Let me guess. Diplomatic disaster and possibly war? Among other consequences, yes." Princess Lyreley descended from the royal platform, moving with a grace that seemed to defy gravity. She had removed her ceremonial armor and now wore simple robes that somehow made her appear more regal than before. As she approached the center of the arena, Prince Catherine moved to follow her, But King Vorthak's raised hand stopped him. The trial belongs to the challenger and the one who invokes it, the king declared. Others may observe but not interfere. The princess stopped before Marcus, her crystalline eyes meeting his. Captain Chen, you have challenged the foundation of my wedding arrangement. Now you must prove that your challenge comes from understanding, rather than ignorance. She gestured to the 3 pedestals. Before you are 3 gifts. Each represents a different truth about the situation you question. You must choose the one that demonstrates the deepest understanding of what is at stake. Marcus approached the first pedestal. Upon it sat a sword of crystalline metal, its blade catching and refracting the arena's light into rainbow patterns. This weapon represents strength, the princess explained. The belief that power and force can solve any problem, that the strong should decide the fate of the weak. The second pedestal held what appeared to be a small star, contained within a crystal sphere. This represents duty, she continued. The belief that individual desires must be sacrificed for the greater good, that personal happiness is less important than political stability. The third pedestal held something that made Marcus's breath catch in his throat. It was a simple flower, clearly of earth origin, a white rose that somehow bloomed despite being light years from its home soil. And this, Princess Lyreley said softly, represents choice. The belief that true strength and real duty can only exist when they are freely given, not imposed. Marcus stared at the flower, understanding flooding through him. This wasn't a test of his knowledge of Zephyrian customs. It was a test of his character and his convictions. The princess had somehow obtained an earth flower and placed it here as one of the options. She was asking him to stand by his beliefs even when doing so carried enormous risk. But there was more to consider. Around the arena, thousands of beings watched and waited. His choice would affect not just his own fate, but humanity's standing in galactic civilization. If he chose wrongly, Earth might find itself isolated or even targeted by hostile powers. Prince Catherine's voice carried from the royal platform. Choose carefully, human. Your primitive notions of romance have no place in matters of galactic importance. The insult stiffened Marcus's resolve. He looked at Princess Lyreley, seeing in her eyes something he hadn't expected, hope mixed with fear. She wanted him to choose the flower, but she was terrified of what that choice might cost both of them. Marcus thought about the music he had given her, about humanity's chaotic creativity and stubborn insistence on following their hearts even when logic dictated otherwise. He thought about the cargo hauler pilot who had thrown himself into an impossible battle because it was the right thing to do. Your Highness, he said clearly, his voice carrying to every corner of the arena. I choose the flower. The silence that followed seemed to stretch for eternity. Then King Vorthak spoke, his voice heavy with the weight of ancient law. The challenger has chosen correctly. The trial of understanding is complete. The arena exploded in shocked murmurs. Marcus felt relief wash over him, but it was short-lived as he realized that passing the trial was only the beginning. Princess Lyreley stepped closer to him, her voice low enough that only he could hear. Captain, do you understand what you have just done? I chose to support your right to make your own decisions about your life, he replied. Beyond that, I'm hoping you'll explain it to me. By invoking the royal response and setting the trial, I have formally questioned the arrangement of my own marriage. By choosing correctly, you have validated that challenge. According to our laws, this creates a period of consideration during which alternative arrangements may be proposed. Marcus felt his stomach drop. Alternative arrangements? The law requires that any warrior who successfully completes the trial of understanding be considered as a potential alternative suitor, should the original arrangement be found inadequate. Your Highness, please tell me you're not saying what I think you're saying. Before she could answer, Prince Catherine's voice rang out across the arena. I invoke the right of combat. Let this pretender prove his worthiness in battle. King Vorthak stood again, his expression grave. The right of combat has been invoked. However, the challenged party may choose the nature of the contest. All eyes turned to Marcus. He was being given a choice of how to fight Prince Catherine, but any choice seemed likely to end badly. The prince was clearly a trained warrior with years of experience in Zephyrian combat techniques. Marcus was a cargo hauler who had gotten lucky in a space battle. What are my options? Marcus asked. Traditional blade combat, energy weapon dueling, or... The king paused, consulting with his advisors. Contest of invention, a test of creativity and problem-solving rather than pure martial skill. Marcus almost laughed. The Zephyrians had inadvertently offered him the one type of challenge where humans excelled, the need to improvise and innovate under pressure. I choose contest of invention, he declared. Prince Catherine's expression showed surprise and perhaps a hint of concern. What does this involve? King Vorthak smiled for the first time since the ceremonies began. Each contestant will be presented with an identical problem requiring creative solution. The first to solve it successfully wins the contest. The problem will be significant. As attendants began preparing the arena for this new challenge, Princess Lyrelei moved close to Marcus again. Captain, you should know that in our culture, the winner of such a contest traditionally has the right to claim the prize they fought for. Marcus looked at her, understanding finally dawning. You planned this, didn't you? The whole thing. My invitation, the challenges, even the trial. I hoped for an opportunity, she admitted. I did not expect you to be brave enough to take it. Your Highness, I should point out that I haven't won anything yet. Your fiancé might be better at creative problem-solving than I am. Princess Lyrelei smiled, and for the first time since he had met her, she looked genuinely happy. Captain, you clearly don't understand Zephyrian culture as well as you think. Prince Catherine has been trained since childhood to follow established procedures and traditional methods. Innovation is not encouraged in the Stellar Dominion. Marcus watched as the prince consulted urgently with his advisors, clearly trying to understand what he had gotten himself into. And what happens if I win? Then you will have earned the right to court me properly according to our customs. Whether I accept or not will be my choice to make. Marcus nodded slowly. And if I lose? Then the original wedding arrangement stands, and I spend the rest of my life wondering what might have been. The arena had been transformed into something resembling a workshop, with tools and materials from dozens of different technological traditions. King Vorthak stood to address the assembled crowd. Let the contest of invention begin. The challenge is this: create a device that can generate sustainable light without any external power source. You have 1 standard hour. Marcus looked at the available materials and smiled. After years of jury-rigging cargo haulers and improvising solutions with whatever was at hand, this felt like coming home. Marcus surveyed the materials laid out before him with the practiced eye of someone who had spent years making broken things work again. The challenge was deceptively simple: create sustainable light without external power. But the implications were enormous. This wasn't just about winning a contest. It was about proving that human ingenuity could stand alongside the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. Across the arena, Prince Catherine was methodically examining the available technology, his movements precise and calculated. He had assembled a team of advisors who were consulting data tablets and discussing traditional approaches to the problem. Their conversation was too distant to hear, but their body language suggested they were following established protocols. Marcus, meanwhile, was doing what humans did best, thinking outside the box. The materials available represented technologies from dozens of different worlds. There were Zephyrian crystal formations that could store and channel energy, Krillian bioluminescent organisms and stasis containers, Voidwalker energy manipulation devices that he couldn't even begin to understand, and hundreds of other components from across the galaxy. But what caught Marcus's attention were the simpler elements: basic metals, reactive chemicals, and what appeared to be primitive combustion materials, items that the more advanced civilizations had probably dismissed as obsolete. Captain, Lieutenant Walsh's voice came through his comm unit. I'm watching from the guest section. Is there anything I can do to help? Marcus subvocalized his response. Sarah, I need you to access our database on bioluminescence and chemical reactions. Also, see if you can find anything about sustainable combustion reactions that don't require external fuel sources. While he waited for the information, Marcus began examining the bioluminescent organisms. They were beautiful creatures like tiny stars contained in crystalline shells. According to the descriptive text, they could produce light for their entire lifespan by converting ambient cosmic radiation into visible illumination. The problem was that they needed specific environmental conditions to survive, and they had a limited lifespan. The challenge required sustainable light, which implied something that could function indefinitely. Captain, Sarah's voice returned. I've found something interesting. There's a type of chemical reaction called chemiluminescence that can be sustained through cyclical processes. Also, some Earth bacteria can produce light through biological processes that are self-sustaining as long as they have access to basic organic compounds. Marcus nodded, an idea beginning to form. He moved to the chemical components looking for elements that could create a cyclical reaction. If he could combine the alien bioluminescent organisms with Earth-style chemistry, he might be able to create something entirely new. Across the arena, Prince Catherine had begun assembling what appeared to be a sophisticated energy collection and storage device. It was elegant and technically impressive, using advanced crystalline matrices to capture and concentrate ambient radiation. It was exactly the kind of solution that Marcus would have expected from someone trained in traditional engineering approaches. Marcus, however, was building something that looked like it had been assembled in a scrapyard. He had taken the bioluminescent organisms and created a sealed environment for them using Zephyrian crystal formations. But instead of relying solely on cosmic radiation, he was introducing a chemical cascade that would provide the organisms with a steady supply of nutrients. The chemicals would react with waste products from the organisms, creating new nutrients in a closed loop. It was messy, inelegant, and completely unprecedented. It was also, Marcus hoped, exactly what the challenge required. 30 minutes remaining, King Vorthak announced. Marcus was in the zone now, his hands moving with the kind of practiced efficiency that came from years of emergency repairs. He had connected the biochemical chamber to a simple mechanical system that would agitate the mixture, ensuring proper circulation and preventing stagnation. The whole contraption was held together with what appeared to be crystalline tape and improvised brackets. Prince Catherine's device, by contrast, was a work of art, perfectly symmetrical, incorporating advanced materials and sophisticated engineering principles. It hummed with barely contained energy and seemed to glow with its own internal light. Captain? Princess Lyrelei had somehow approached without him noticing. She was watching his work with fascination. May I ask what you're building? A ecosystem in miniature, Your Highness. Instead of trying to capture energy from outside sources, I'm creating a closed system where biological processes create the energy they need to sustain themselves. That's not how our scientists typically approach such problems. It's not how human scientists typically approach them either, Marcus admitted. But humans have a saying. If it looks stupid but it works, it's not stupid. Princess Lyrelei laughed, the sound like crystal chimes in the arena's acoustics. I begin to understand why your species has survived in a galaxy full of more advanced civilizations. 10 minutes remaining. Marcus made final adjustments to his chemical mixing ratios. Using calculations he had hastily worked out on a piece of crystal that served as his notepad. The bioluminescent organisms were responding well to their new environment, their light output increasing as the nutrient flow stabilized. Prince Catherine was making final calibrations to his energy collection arrays. His device was definitely more impressive looking, and Marcus had to admit it represented far more advanced engineering than his own contraption. But there was something bothering Marcus about the prince's approach. It was too dependent on external conditions. If the cosmic radiation levels changed or if the device was moved to a location with different energy signatures, it might stop working. Time. Both contestants stepped back from their devices. The arena fell silent as King Vorthak and a panel of judges from various civilizations approached to examine the results. Prince Catherine's device activated with a brilliant flash of light. Crystal formations arranged in complex geometric patterns captured ambient energy and focused it into a beam of pure white illumination. It was beautiful, efficient, and undeniably impressive. Excellent work, the lead judge declared. Sustainable output, efficient energy conversion, elegant design. A worthy demonstration of advanced engineering principles. Then they turned to Marcus's contraption. It didn't look like much. A sealed crystal chamber filled with glowing organisms, connected to a primitive chemical mixing system, all held together with improvised components. But as the judges watched, the light from the organisms grew brighter and more stable. Interesting, the judge said. Explain the principle. Marcus took a deep breath. The organisms produce light as a byproduct of their metabolism. I've created a closed ecosystem where their waste products are chemically converted back into nutrients. As long as the chemical balance is maintained, the system is completely self-sustaining. And how long will it function? Theoretically, indefinitely. The organisms will reproduce, maintaining the population. The chemical reactions are cyclical, so no materials are consumed permanently. It's not just sustainable, it's self-repairing and self-improving. The judges exchanged glances. One of them, a representative from an ancient civilization that Marcus didn't recognize, leaned forward to examine the device more closely. Fascinating. You have created not just a light source but a living system. This represents a fundamental difference in approach from traditional engineering. Prince Kethrin stepped forward, his expression showing concern for the first time. Judges, while the human's approach is creative, surely technical elegance and efficiency should be valued over primitive biological processes. The lead judge turned to address both contestants. Both devices meet the technical requirements of the challenge. Prince Kethrin's device is a masterwork of traditional engineering, efficient and powerful. Captain Chen's device represents an entirely new approach to the problem, creating sustainability through biological processes rather than energy manipulation. Marcus held his breath. This could go either way. However, the judge continued. The challenge specifically required sustainable light without external power sources. Prince Kethrin's device, while impressive, still depends on ambient cosmic radiation, an external power source. Captain Chen's device is truly self-contained and self-sustaining. The arena erupted in shocked voices as the implications sank in. Marcus had won the contest of invention. King Vorthak stood, his voice carrying clearly across the arena. The contest is concluded. Captain Marcus Chen has demonstrated superior understanding of the challenge requirements. According to the ancient laws, he has earned the right to court Princess Lyralee. Prince Kethrin's face had gone dark with anger. This is preposterous. A primitive alien cannot simply waltz in and claim a royal bride through technological tricks. The law is clear, King Vorthak replied firmly. The contest was fairly conducted and judged. However, he turned to address Marcus directly. Captain Chen, you should understand that earning the right to court someone and actually marrying them are very different things. The princess must still choose to accept your suit. All eyes turned to Princess Lyralee. She stood in the center of the arena, the focus of attention from thousands of beings representing dozens of civilizations. Her next words would determine not just her own fate, but potentially the political balance of entire star systems. She looked at Marcus, then at Prince Kethrin, then at her father. When she spoke, her voice carried clearly through the crystal acoustics of the arena. I accept Captain Chen's right to court me. Furthermore, I formally request a period of consideration as provided by royal law, during which I will determine which suitor I prefer. The arena exploded in chaos as the political implications of her decision rippled through the assembled delegations. Marcus stood in the center of it all, suddenly realizing that winning the contest had been the easy part. Now he had to figure out how to court an alien princess without starting an interstellar war. The period of consideration lasted exactly 7 days, during which Marcus learned more about interstellar politics than he had ever wanted to know. Delegations from across the galaxy suddenly found urgent reasons to visit Zephyr Prime, each carrying proposals, threats, or incentives related to Princess Lyralee's marriage decision. The Stellar Dominion representatives made it clear that rejecting Prince Kethrin would be viewed as a hostile act. The Krillian Empire offered increased trade agreements if the princess chose the human option. 3 separate peace treaties hung in the balance, and Marcus found himself at the center of a diplomatic storm that could reshape galactic civilization. Captain, Lieutenant Walsh said during one of their daily briefings, the political pressure is enormous. Are you sure about this? Marcus looked out at the crystal gardens where he had spent the past week getting to know Princess Lyralee. Their conversations had ranged from human music to interstellar law, from Earth's chaotic history to Zephyrian philosophy. With each passing day, his respect for her intelligence and strength had grown. Sarah, I've never been sure about anything in my life, but sometimes you have to take risks for the things that matter. The courtship itself had been unlike anything in human or Zephyrian tradition. Instead of formal ceremonies and ritualized interactions, they had simply talked. Marcus had shown her Earth music, explaining the stories behind the songs. She had shared Zephyrian poetry that transformed light into language. They had debated ethics, explored each other's cultures, and discovered a connection that transcended species. On the 6th day, Prince Catherine requested a private meeting with Marcus. They met in a neutral chamber, attended only by diplomatic observers to ensure propriety. "Captain Chen," the prince began, his tone carefully controlled. "I want you to understand what you're risking. The Stellar Dominion has been allied with Zephyr for over 1,000 years. That alliance has prevented 3 major wars and maintained peace across dozens of star systems." Marcus nodded respectfully. "Your Highness, I understand the political implications, but I also understand that Princess Lyrelei deserves the right to choose her own future. Even if that choice leads to war, even then, freedom without risk isn't really freedom at all." Prince Catherine studied him for a long moment. "You know, Captain, under other circumstances, I think I might have respected you. Your courage is admirable. But you're naive if you think personal happiness matters more than galactic stability." "Maybe," Marcus replied, "but humans have always believed that the individual matters as much as the collective. It's what makes us who we are." On the 7th day, Princess Lyrelei called for a formal assembly to announce her decision. The Great Hall was packed with representatives from every major civilization, all waiting to learn how the galaxy's political balance would shift. Marcus stood with the other suitors. Catherine had been joined by 2 additional candidates who had arrived during the week, trying to project calm he didn't feel. Beside him, the prince maintained perfect diplomatic composure, but Marcus could sense the tension radiating from him. King Vorthak rose from his crystal throne, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. "My daughter has reached her decision regarding her choice of marriage partner. Princess Lyrelei, please announce your selection." The princess stood, resplendent in formal robes that seemed to capture starlight itself. She looked out over the assembled dignitaries, her gaze touching briefly on each of the suitors before settling on a point somewhere above the crowd. "Honored guests, representatives of our allied civilizations, I have spent the past week in careful consideration of my options. This decision affects not only my personal future, but the political stability of our region of space." Marcus felt his heart pounding. Everything hung on her next words. "I have decided," she continued, her voice clear and strong, "to accept the courtship of Captain Marcus Chen of the United Human Space Command, and to request formal negotiations for a marriage alliance between Zephyr and humanity." The hall erupted. Stellar Dominion representatives leaped to their feet in outrage, while delegates from other civilizations shouted questions and demands. Through it all, Marcus stood frozen, barely able to process what had just happened. Princess Lyrelei had chosen him. King Vorthak's voice cut through the chaos. "The decision has been made according to our laws and traditions. However, I call for calm deliberation rather than hasty reactions." Prince Catherine stepped forward, his diplomatic mask finally slipping. "This is madness! You would throw away 1,000 years of alliance for a primitive species that has barely reached the stars?" "I would choose freedom over obligation," the princess replied firmly. "And I would remind you, Prince Catherine, that the human species has already proven its worth in battle against our own forces." Marcus found his voice at last. "Your Majesty, Your Highness, I am deeply honored by Princess Lyrelei's choice. However, I request permission to address the political concerns that have been raised." King Vorthak nodded. "Speak, Captain Chen." Marcus stepped forward, acutely aware that his next words could determine the fate of billions. "Honored delegates, I understand your concerns about the political implications of this marriage. But I propose that instead of seeing this as an ending of old alliances, we view it as an opportunity to create new ones." He turned to address Prince Catherine directly. "Your Highness, the Stellar Dominion and humanity need not be enemies. We share common values of strength, honor, and the protection of our peoples. Perhaps there are ways to build cooperation between our civilizations. You speak of cooperation after stealing my intended bride? I speak of building a future where personal freedom and political stability can coexist," Marcus replied. "Princess Lyrelei's choice doesn't have to mean the end of Zephyr's relationship with the Stellar Dominion. It could mean the beginning of a 3-way alliance that combines Zephyrian wisdom, Dominion strength, and human innovation." The Stellar Dominion delegates exchanged glances. The proposal was unexpected, and Marcus could see them calculating the potential advantages. King Vorthak stepped forward. "Captain Chen raises an interesting possibility. Perhaps this disruption of our traditions could lead to something stronger than what came before. Over the following hours, the Great Hall became an impromptu diplomatic conference. Representatives from dozens of civilizations debated, negotiated, and gradually crafted a new framework for interstellar relations. The marriage between a human captain and a Zephyrian princess became the cornerstone of a complex web of new alliances and trade agreements. Prince Kithrin, to his credit, eventually accepted the situation with grace. "Captain Chen," he said during a break in negotiations, "I still believe you're naive. But perhaps the galaxy needs a little naivety to shake up old patterns." As the sun set over Zephyr Prime, Marcus found himself alone with Princess Lyralee in the Crystal Gardens. The political negotiations would continue for days, but the personal matter had been settled. "Your Highness," he said, "I have to ask, are you sure about this? You're giving up a lot for someone you've known for less than 2 weeks." Princess Lyralee smiled, her crystalline features catching the light of the setting suns. "Marcus, I think I can call you Marcus now. You showed me something I had never experienced before." "What's that?" "Choice, real genuine choice. You risked everything just to give me the right to decide my own future. How could I not choose someone who values my freedom more than his own safety?" Marcus took her hands, marveling at how they seemed to hold starlight. "So what happens now?" "Now we plan a wedding that will hopefully not start a war," she replied with a laugh. "And we begin the difficult work of building a life together across 2 very different worlds." Sounds complicated. The best things usually are. As they walked back toward the Crystal Palace, Marcus reflected on the strange turns his life had taken. A few weeks ago, he had been a simple cargo hauler. Now he was about to become part of an alien royal family and help reshape galactic politics. It was definitely not what he had planned when he accepted that wedding invitation, but as he looked at the brilliant alien woman who had chosen to share her life with him, Marcus realized that sometimes the best adventures were the ones you never saw coming. The wedding itself, held 3 months later after extensive diplomatic negotiations, was a fusion of human and Zephyrian traditions that created something entirely new. Representatives from across the galaxy attended, and the ceremony became a symbol of cooperation between different species and cultures. The bride wore crystalline robes that transformed music into light, while the groom wore a human military dress uniform adapted with Zephyrian ceremonial elements. Instead of traditional vows, they exchanged gifts that represented their respective cultures. She gave him a crystal that would always point toward home, no matter where in the galaxy he traveled, and he gave her a simple earth flower that would bloom eternally, sustained by the same biological processes he had used in his invention contest. As they were declared married according to the laws of both their peoples, Marcus couldn't help but smile at the improbability of it all. He had come to an alien wedding as a guest and somehow managed to become the groom. But looking at his new wife, and at the assembled representatives of dozens of civilizations who had come together to witness their